Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, everyone. I'm pleased to be here with you today, and it's a great pleasure to be with you to discuss and to know a bit more about international leadership, the importance of soft skills in multicultural environment. First, a warm welcome and a warm thank you to all of you who will be able to join today. Probably it's the night where you are, or it's the early morning. So I'm glad you will be able to be with us. And today with me we have two, one former MBA student and one almost former MBA student. So let me introduce all of us. Okay, so my name is Dr Darioly. I'm associate professor at Les Roches Global Hospitality Education at Crans-Montana in Switzerland. My expertise, as you can see on the screen, I'm sort of expert in leadership and work psychology. So I'm teaching leadership in the MBA and postgraduate program. And my main interest in terms of research are leadership and soft skills. Today with me, I'm pleased to have an almost done MBA student, Mr. Ashrit Mahesh. Ashrit, would you mind introducing a bit of yourself, telling us a bit more?
Thank you, Dr. Darioly. Hi, everybody. My name is Ashrit. I'm currently doing my MBA at Les Roches in Switzerland. I'm just about less than a month away from graduating now. A little bit about me. I come from India. I was born and brought up there. I did my bachelor's in finance in India, and after that, I knew I wanted to come into hospitality. So Les Roches gave the perfect platform to get in because there was the postgraduate diploma program, and I got into that. Just before that, I had a short stint at the Taj Hotels in Mumbai, where I did a cross training for 3 months. And after my postgraduate diploma, I had an opportunity to go to Dubai and work at the Burj Al Arab in Jumeirah. It's a very nice hotel in Dubai, in case you haven't heard of it. And once I finished that, I had the opportunity to come back to Switzerland, to Les Roches, to finish my MBA. So I could transfer from my PGD into the MBA. That's one of the nice things that the course offers you. Apart from hospitality, as you can see, if you see my posters behind, I'm a huge cricket fan, and I really like writing as well. Over to Elena as well. Thank you, Dr. Darioly, once again. Looking forward to the presentation.
Thank you, thank you. So with us, we also have Elena Evangelidou. So Elena, can you tell us a bit more about you?
Of course. Hello, everyone, and thank you for Dr. Darioly for the invitation to this webinar today. So I come from Greece. I'm also a former MBA student at Les Roches. My background actually has always been in sales, but I was a career changer. So after more than 10 years in the industry of transportation and freight forwarding, I decided to switch careers, and Les Roches offered me the perfect MBA program for me to start a new chapter in my life. So after graduating, I was in the sales department of Marriott International in Sardinia, in Italy. We are running 4 or 5-star properties. And during the pandemic, I discovered another chapter of myself, wanting to be an entrepreneur. So I've started my own ventures. I've launched my own business that has to do with internet marketing, and it's completely online. So that gives me the opportunity to work from anywhere in the world and still use my skills in sales, in communication, and in growing my own global network. And apart from that, I enjoy personal development, traveling, which I really hope that I will soon start doing again. I enjoy very much communication with people around the world.
Fantastic, thank you very much. So before we start, let me tell you that you can post your question that you might have during the entire presentation, and on the right side of your screen you should have a section called question. You can just type it and I will answer it after the presentation. So feel free to to ask any question you might have for me or for our two panelists. So let's start our journey on what do you need to be effective, but also a global leader. So for this journey, we will see mostly the distinction between hard and soft skills, and how it is so important to have and to develop our soft skills for employees, but not only, also for leaders. We will then discuss about the existence of soft skills necessary globally, but also how the culture impact their perception and their use in a workplace. So first, let me just discuss briefly about the distinction between hard skills and soft skills. You might be familiar with these kind of skills, but we have the tendency to mix both of them, and I think it's important to make a distinction. And the key differences between hard and soft skills are how they are gained and put to the use in a workplace. So let's start with the hard skills. Hard skills are often gained through our education or specific training. And there include competencies like any software or being multilingual, learning language, controlling calls, for instance, or sales techniques. On the other side, you have soft skills, and soft skills are more often seen as personality traits you may have spent your whole life developing. So they are called upon when you manage your time. So we have a time management, being patient, our leadership skills, teamwork, all willingness to learn, and empathy as some example. So just looking at those distinctions, and I will start by asking our audience with our first poll one specific question. So you will see on the screen that you will receive a poll that you can answer with specific questions. So what is the number one only, the number one quality you expect the most from your manager? So as you can see, there is only a few options. So being an industry expert, being trustworthy, being knowledgeable, being supportive, or controlling their emotion. If you need to choose only one, which one would you choose? So I'll let you a few seconds to decide what would be the best or the number one quality you expect. And then I will have a question for our panelists. So I can already mention like this, our dear panelists can think about it. You need to think about the best or the worst boss you had in your life, and then you will give me some attributes after that poll. So let's see our results. Okay, so as we can see, the number one for most of you, for 57% of you, is being supportive. And then the second one is controlling our emotion. And well, equality between being an expert, being knowledgeable, and being trustworthy. What we can see with these options is that being supportive and controlling their emotion are key elements. And guess what? They are part of our soft skills. So Ashrit and Elena, could you tell me what would be the best or the worst boss attribute that you had for your boss?
Elena, would you
Ashrit,
like to go first?
You want to go? Okay, okay. So let me go first. So as I have some experience already, more than 15 years of professional. I would say that my worst boss would be someone who didn't really show how he would care for my own personal development within the business. Meaning that, of course, it's my own responsibility to have my to be aspired and to want to grow through the company. But having your mentor or your boss or anyone who is above you and has some more experience than you, being supportive and being always, you know, by your side, is something that I truly cherish. So I think one of my, you know, the cases that I've had, maybe I was only one. I'm fortunate enough to remember that I had a bad boss. It was, you know, the feeling of not actually caring for my own development.
Perfect, thank you. And Ashrit?
So for me, I'll share only the experience about my best boss that I had. So it's a real life experience. There was a front office manager called Mariana when I was working at Burj Al Arab in Dubai. So there was this one specific example where I took a guest to a room without checking if the room was clean and the housekeeping staff were still there. So it was a huge mistake from my side, and it cost the company quite almost in thousands of dollars to compensate for that because it's a VIP guest. So that day I thought I was finished. That's it. I'm going to get fired. I'm going to go home. But then she called me into her office. She very calmly sat me down and she said, you know, mistakes happen. This is the first time this is happening. Instead of focusing on what I did, she focused on the things that I shouldn't repeat and should take care of the next time. So that taught me such a big lesson. And it's something that I incorporated in myself from onwards every day. And that also gave me a huge amount of respect for her.
Okay,
So I
thank you very
think
much.
overall, yeah, I think empathy is one quality, I would say.
Okay, if I'm some of what you said and what our audience are thinking. So we have being supportive, controlling our emotion, being empathic, being inspirational, as Elena you mentioned, and caring about the others and their other development. These already, without going to the next slide, we can say that how soft skills are important. We can see just basically with, if you need to think about the bad or a good boss, you have only in memory the soft skills. None of you mentioned that they were so good in speaking English or so good in manipulating Excel. And as we also see in the poll, the result of the first poll, soft skills are really important for our career. So it's show you already the importance of soft skills. And if I can back up with a bit of research, it's we know that 85% of job success is based on individual soft skills. So soft skills lead to more profitability and a higher job satisfaction. And that works in any field. It doesn't apply in hospitality, only in hospitality or in manufacturing. It applies for any industry. Soft skills are a key element if you want to perform effectively and to be productive. So, and it makes also a distinction between the achiever and the non-achiever. So the way you are able to develop and to use your soft skill in every workplace, you will be successful. So with this pandemic, we keep talking about this pandemic, and we all move to office, to our home, and we're playing with computers, with Teams, with webinar, and so on. So we use more and more technology, and with the increasingly remote-led experience-driven world, do we need soft skills? I can tell you yes. I just put on that you can read on this slide. You have a quote that we with one of my colleagues we did a research and from what is necessary for future leader. And future leader, meaning you guys. So future leader in 2025, not in years or centuries, is what we will need right now and for our future. And I can just pinpoint some elements. So it's mention of innovative, change management, being disruptive, or managing our cultural diversity, or all those elements of being creative, for instance. And this just gives you a glimpse of what is necessary globally for future leader or for any employees. So let's discuss briefly about well, not briefly, but let's discuss about the global key soft skills. And I have a question for you, dear panelists. If you've been managing a team, and I guess you might have managing a team, which soft skills do you think were most useful in leading that team? Talking only about you, not in general. You too, what was the most important soft skills you think the most useful? Elena, please go ahead.
Okay, so I have been managing my own team for the past 7 to 8 months. Actually, it's the first time that I'm managing a big team. It's a team of 15 people. For me, it's that sounds big because it's my first experience. What actually has helped me, I have gained some leadership skills also from your course, Dr. Darioly, but then I put it into practice directly, having an example of my own boss at Marriott International, the director of sales and marketing, Mr. Dr. Claudio Cadetu. He was actually a great leader, and he showed me that one of the skills that I also want to have is to be a good listener and to show empathy, and to always have a good communication with my team.
And I think I echo Elena's thoughts as well, because I feel communication is something that's the most important. Whenever you receive any information, as a leader, you might have to keep some things confidential, but you always need to let your team know that there's something that's going on and that's stopping you from doing your work. Because I think with clear communication, you can sort out about 90% of all problems. And another quality that I think is very important is empowerment. You might be the leader, but it doesn't mean that the people below you are not skilled enough to do a task. It's just that you have the authority for it. So a lot of times as a leader, you need to delegate your tasks, but you should be careful in order to keep the authority with yourself, so that they also feel motivated with that.
Okay, thank you very much. So as Elena and Ashrit mentioned, they mentioned clearly several soft skills like active listening, communication, empathy. And those skills are very necessary in our global world, and there is in line with what research have shown. So let's see a bit of, I'm just trying to change my slides. Oh yeah, perfect. So just see how, what are the necessary skills we need or you need to be a successful and effective leader. So if you look at these lists, you have the positive leader attributes. So there are universally desirable leadership attributes. And as you can look at them, most of them, I won't say all of them, but most of them are part of the soft skills. We have team building, being motivational, dynamic, being a confidence builder, being positive, trustworthy, honest. All those have been shown that they are desirable everywhere in the world. So as an effective leader, if you need to work and to have an international experience, you have already what people expect in every part of the world. I mean, could be in a remote place in US or in a big city of Asia. Those skills or those attributes are desirable everywhere. So if you have already some of them, you are already in a good track and a right track to be successful. However, if I can show you some negative leadership or leader attributes, there are also universally approved as and considered as undesirable leadership attributes. So if you have a tendency to be not controlling your emotion, to be quite irritable or rude or dictatorial, even egocentric, this is not so good. So they are perceived, and those leadership attributes are perceived as undesirable everywhere in the world. So what is quite interesting is that there are attributes, positive, negative, that are globally approved. And if we think a bit more in detail regarding the three leading aspects, like leading our team, leading ourselves, and leading our organization, we can also have such images of soft skills. So I show you here what are the soft skills needed for future leader. And again, it's globally approved, even though here it's split in three categories. Ourselves, yourself as a leader, your team, so what you should be careful when you lead a team, and your organization. What are the skills necessary to be successful in your organization? And those three categories, you can see various soft skills like under ourselves, self-management. Again, emotional resilience, emotional composure, adaptability, flexibility, time management. Under your team, developing others, as Elena mentioned, it's a key element. Cultural intelligence, I'm coming back later on cultural intelligence. Or your organization, strategy, thinking, creativity, and innovation. So those are considered as soft skills needed for future leaders, and they are globally approved. So again, coming back to our international experience. You both have experience internationally. And I guess, both of you have a sort of cultural intelligence. And what is important to know in our global world is that leader and future leader most of them have international experience. And so I would like here to highlight cultural intelligence, because cultural intelligence plays a significant role in the transformation of our international experience into a global mindset. And global mindset, if you want to be sure to understand what is global mindset, you have a definition here, but I won't read it. I will just explain with what you can develop your global mindset. So most of the time, I won't say always, but most of the time we develop our global mindset early in our life. So you might be born in Asia from parents, expat parents who are European. You might be fluent in several languages and have traveled extensively. So a new culture for you is not at all or less intimidating than someone who stays in the same country with the same culture, from the same parents, from the same nationality. But in my work with our graduate students, I've been able to show that these global mindset can be improved in measurable ways. So how to do it? And that is a tip that I'm giving you now, because it's something I won't be able to develop during these webinars. But just one thing, you need to imagine, you need to figure out where you stand today and take time to reflect where I am with my global mindset. And by that, I mean by having a reflection on three major components, which are intellectual capital, psychological capital, and social capital. To do so, you need to assess and reflect on those three capitals. To give you some example of what means intellectual capital, so it's basically the knowledge you have on other culture, your skills in analytical concept, or how good you are in knowing the history and the geography of other countries, for instance. Moving on to psychological capital, it's linked to our personality. How open are we in front of new culture or different culture? Or how passionate we are when we meet new culture, a new nationality. And also how we, for social capital, how we interact with other cultures. And this is just some example of how to assess your global mindset. I can tell you that online you can find some tools if you want to assess with a measurable tool your global mindset, but as I say, I won't be able to develop more on that aspect. But what is important to remember from this element is that there are some soft skills that you can develop all your life and at any time of your career that works everywhere in the world. However, there is always a however, there are some elements, some leadership styles or that might be effective everywhere, but some of them need to take into consideration the culture of our followers, of our employees. So let's see how leadership styles are in our culture or your culture with the second poll. So I will ask you a question to our audience. So get ready when it's will be soon ready to look at our poll. And the question that I have for you, dear audience, is in your culture, the leadership style is more like stick and carrot, or do what I say, not what I do, developing and empowering others, or laissez-faire, which is leave employees manage themselves. So just pick one. In your culture, what do you think is the most often used? I'm not talking about effectiveness, but the most often used leadership style. And while you're answering, we will look at the environment where you did your study, for instance, for Elena and Ashrit. So we will discuss later on how many nationalities you had in your classroom, and did you feel that multicultural dynamic in the way people or even yourself will take leadership in group projects. But let's see, and let a few minutes or few seconds more to see the results. So let's see how the results are. So for 10% of you, the leadership style is more like stick and carrot. For 38 of you, it's do what I said, not what I did. Luckily, 43% is developing and empowering others, and only 10% is laissez-faire. This, I assume that our audience comes from everywhere in the world. So we can see that there are some cultural differences in the way we lead and in the way we might perceive effectiveness in terms of leadership. So thank you for your answer. And let's go back to our panelists. So Elena, both of you studied MBA, so at Les Roches. So how many nationalities, if you remember, how many nationalities did you have in your classroom?
Of course. We were 28 nationalities in my class.
Okay. And you, Ashrit?
During my PGD, I think we had 23 nationalities. And now in my MBA batch, which is a smaller class, we have about 17 nationalities here.
Still smaller class, but still a lot.
Yes.
And did you feel that multicultural dynamics in a way people or even yourself would take leadership in group projects? Or do you see differences the way you manage your team and so on? Elena, what is your opinion on that?
Yes, of course. I believe that even though we, in my classroom, a lot of people were from, not a lot of people, but let's say there was a percentage of people from India and then around the world, of course, from from Latin America, from Europe. But you could tell, like working in teams, you could tell that each person has to offer different points of view from different backgrounds, because also the ages were different. So some of us were younger, some of us were older. So I believe that it not only has to do with cultural diversity, but also a diversity from different kind of lifestyle, maybe or background. And in our teams, the way we were working, I completely felt that that diversity, and I enjoyed and I learned a lot.
Okay, thank you. And Ashra, do you have an experience or to share with us regarding how the project were led in such diverse groups?
So here, actually, we do have a lot of group projects, and by nature, I like to take lead. So when doing that, it's actually very interesting when you have so many nationalities, because you learn so much how to manage each of them. For example, if there's a British person in your team and you want to tell them something, you give them a glass of beer, you talk about football for 20, 25 minutes, and then you go to the point. And you finish that, and you chat again. For example, Elena, I think you're Greek, so I'll take the liberty. With a Greek person, you give them the work, and you don't bother them until the time is due. When it's due, they give you like perfect work. And in all this, we need to understand that our own culture comes into play, which we never think about because we think we're always adjusting to other people. But at the same time, you have others who are actually adjusting to you as well. So when you do that, there's a nice coherence that comes in, and you adjust for others, others adjust for you. You fit in like a jigsaw puzzle when you're leading a multicultural team, and you learn so much without you even realizing it.
Great, thank you. And do you take anything out to their experience? So if I'm not, if I understood correctly, and then I would be more how you will manage every members quite differently depending on their culture or their way of life or way of doing it. I think Ashrit, you might have the same take-home message that every people need to be managed differently depending where you are. It's what you would say, or?
Yes, I would say that it's always very important to try to put in yourself in the position of the other person and try to actually understand their culture and what you have to learn, what there is to learn from the other person. And of course, I think it's very crucial to learn how to manage your own self and how to manage your own emotions, and to always have a common goal on how to create the more successful result for each case.
So let's back up with what Ashrit mentioned regarding well, I won't be so direct in terms of how we should lead British and how we should lead Greek people, but that gives you some example of the impact of culture. So let's do a bit of introspection, if I must say these words, that when we look at culture, it's most of the time is societal culture, and this culture is so powerful. It's a so powerful factor that shapes who we are and also who is seen as a leader and which leader are effective. And there are 9 cultural dimensions, so I won't read everything, but I will just show some of those 9 cultural dimensions that might and will affect who we are and how we behave, and then how we are able to lead, or how we lead, in fact. So we have, for instance, performance orientation. So it's how the society in which you lead are oriented in terms of performance. They're always wanting the best or being excellent. Assertiveness is how you accept being assertive or confrontational or being even aggressive with others. Future orientation is more like how we plan, how we see the future. So a good example would be to reflect on how the pandemic is managed across the world, and every country is doing differently. So this is part of our culture. Then we have human-oriented, so it's mostly a culture of being caring and taking care of others, being generous. Institutional collectivism, sorry. It's more about the how we encourage other to be equal, and the distribution of the resources we have. If we look at in-group collectivism, it's more the how people are expressing pride and loyalty and cohesiveness in their family or in their organization. Gender egalitarianism, quite clear. It's how we minimize or maximize gender inequality or equality depending where we are. Power distance, also it's how as a powerless person or people we accept that there is a differences between the authority or between powerful people and us. And finally, uncertainty avoidance is how we deal with the rules and traditions. Some countries or some culture are very traditionalist, and they're even scared to change, and this is uncertainty avoidance. So to continue with that, we know that there is cultural differences, but then is there any differences in leadership? And there is an interesting, and this is something I want to highlight, there is an interesting project. It's a longitudinal project started in 2004, and they launching a new, now in 2021, a new data collection, and it's called GLOW, Global Leadership and Organizational Behavioral Effectiveness. This project is interesting because he tried, and is doing a good job, I must say, he tried to determine if organizational or societal culture predict how we behave as a leader, and also how we expect our leader to be. So they identify 6 global leadership behaviors. So those 6 global leadership behavior, it's in everywhere. However, the change, depending on the culture, will be adapted. So we have autonomous, being independent, individualistic, charismatic, so being inspirational, motivational, human-oriented, it's what some of you mentioned, being supportive, participative, follower involved in decision-making, self-protective, how as a leader you protect your face and the group sense of security, and then team-oriented. So it's linked to team building behavior and implementation of a common goal. So you have those 6 global dimensions. And then what is interesting is they split the countries. So at that time was 62 countries. Now I think there are around 120 countries for their new research. So they divided countries in different regional clusters. So we have Anglo, Latin Europe, Nordic Europe, Germanic Europe, Eastern Europe, Southern Asia, Confucian Asia, Middle East, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Latin America. And they all have different characteristics. So just give you some example. If you come from an Anglo culture, you tend to be more competitive, result-oriented. Middle East will be devoted and loyal to their own people. Women afford less status. Germanic Europe are considered as value competitive, aggressive, and are more result-oriented. So I can give you examples for each of them, but I think it's just to show you how we can categorize part of the world based on different categories of expectation and also of behavior. So now what is interesting, we have the culture and we have leadership dimensions and how those two match. And I will give you some examples. So I assume anyone of us and anyone of you want to travel around the world and work in various parts of the world, so which is part of our new global environment. So imagine you want to work in India. I'm just taking this example. And you are Swiss, like me. And it might be a clash in terms of culture and our leadership expectation. So looking at these relationship between the culture and the leadership expectation might help any future leader or any future employee to adjust their behavior in order to fit with the culture in where they plan to work or in where they plan to lead. So I just give you some examples. So in Eastern Europe, a European country, we expect from a leader to be independent while maintaining strong interest in protecting their position as a leader. In Latin Europe, a leader is more expected to be inspiring, collaborative, participative, self-confident. If we continue in Anglo, for instance, Anglo country, leaders are expected to be motivating, visionary, considerate of others. In Middle East, it would be more like leadership emphasize status and face-saving, and they emphasize charismatic and value-based and all group-oriented leadership. So I hope you had time to look at probably where you are in the world and what are the expectations in your own country. So let's see if you're still with me and if you understood what I've just said. So I will launch the third poll, and it's a bit like more a class question or exam question where there is this time a correct answer. You are to help HP set up an office in Brazil, a country with, we know, high scores for power distance. What would be the leadership style would you advise for such country? We have Brazil, which a high score in power distance. Would you advise the manager to be nurturing and empowering, to be authoritative and directive, or to be collaborative and participative? I'll give you a few seconds to answer and see if you got the correct answer. So, would you be able to give the correct answer? Not really. But it's not too bad. So the correct answer will, well, let me ask the panelists, see if they follow before I gave the correct answer. Ashrit, how would you answer to this question?
I would say since the power distance is pretty high, you would have to be authoritative and directive to them when giving tasks.
Exactly. Correct answer. So the correct answer here is being authoritative and directive. Directive manager will find more success in Brazil. But it's not so bad. So you can always adjust your leadership style or leadership behavior. Okay, let's continue. If you remember the three, at the beginning, we discussed, or I discussed about the three pillars of leadership, which is leading ourselves, leading our team, and leading our organization. To go back to the soft skills we discussed at the beginning, here it's split the result of the 14 soft skills that have been presented at the beginning, depending on the working region. So the regions are slightly different than what has been presented from Globe. You have UK, Middle East, Africa, Europe, Asia, and America. I just need to highlight that the differences you can see on the slides are not significant differences. So that means those skills are still expected for future leaders everywhere in the world. However, there are slight differences that you need to be careful if you plan to go, for instance, in UK or to go in Europe to work. Just give you one example as it won't take too long to explain all the results. See here we have a strong, 100% adaptability or being adaptive and flexible. So if you're working in Middle East Africa, you are expected to be adaptive, flexible more than if you were working in America. If we look to our team or your team, how it looks like in terms of soft skills, here we have 100 here. Diversity management skills. So diversity management skills are highly expected in America and a bit less in Middle East Africa. And finally, for your organization, so, I double-click too. So your organization, you will have, let's take the example of creativity and innovation. So you have to be more creative and more innovative, slightly more creative, more innovative in Middle East Africa, what we expect as a leader, than in UK, for instance. So it's how we can see that there are slight differences depending where you plan to work and depending where you grew up and what is your culture about. So to conclude, or what will be the take-home message of today? What do you need to be an effective global leader? Well, we can summarize with few key soft skills, if I say. There is a common core of competencies required by global leaders. And global leaders need to manage interpersonal relationships by being interpersonally engaged, interested in our social environment, and emotionally intelligent. That means control your emotion, understand others' emotion. And they need to be non-judgmental, tolerant for ambiguity, self-confident, optimistic, and one important element, they need to have a global mindset. But really never forget that although there are core competencies that we cover, to be fully effective, you need to adapt your style to match each team member cultural expectation. So Elena and Ashret, based on your experience, would you add any additional attributes or soft skills that are on the screen? Anything you would like to add?
Personally, I think I would be adding the attribute of being a visionary for each new country. That means if I could take the decision to go and lead a team in India, for example, I would ideally choose to envision a goal that probably I would take a certain goal that I have already applied here in Greece and seeing the benefits, and try to implement it also in the Indian organization. Of course, always adapting to the needs of the culture.
Ashrit, anything you want to add?
I would say this covers everything, and I wanted to say adaptability as well, but Alina's covered it. So I think that would be it.
Perfect. So now it's time for questions. So thank you very much for your attention. And now let's see if you have, dear attendees or audience, some questions. So just looking in the box, just trying to put it bigger. So we have one comment about it's about creating a culture of care and support in the environment in order to have better employee engagement, stronger customer service level, and higher level of productivity. So exactly, so you both mentioned, and I also mentioned how caring is quite important, and supportive also it's quite important in any environment. So it's quite important that has I'm looking for the name. So it's quite very important. So let me see. One question: is it necessary bad to try to apply one cultural leadership style in different culture? Is it necessary bad to try to apply one cultural leadership style in different culture? I would say it's not necessarily bad, but I'm not sure it will be fully effective. So, but I guess it's always good to be a bit disruptive and to try to be, well, I have this example of caring, empowering, and motivating our team. That is considered globally as one of the most successful or effective leadership styles. If you tell me that you will apply that everywhere in the world, I would say yes, it's a good idea. But now if you want to try to be more in terms of being controlling and the stick and carrot approach, I'm not sure it will be good to try in for instance, in US or in Europe. So this would be my answer. In terms of the experience, so Elena or Ashrit, how would you answer this question? So is it necessarily bad to try to apply one cultural leadership style in different culture? Elena, do you have an opinion?
From my experience, I would say that you always need to adapt your leadership style. Maybe not 100%, but some percentage needs to be adapted to the team that you will be leading. Because if you don't communicate well, because leadership style has to do with also the communication with your team, then you will really soon end up having a strong distance between your team and what you are actually want to achieve as a final result. So I think, of course, it's always good to know your own leadership style and what works for you, but it's good to try to adapt that to the team.
Ashrit, do you want to add something?
I think it also depends on the industry that you are in, because if you're in hospitality and you're a leader in hospitality, everything depends on your team. If you might be the best hotelier in the world, but then if you don't have a team, your hotel is going to sink. So I feel here you really need to adapt yourself. But for example, if you take an industry like finance, it's not as dependent on a team as it is in hospitality. So there, if you're a leader in, say, in a financial organization, you can be a little more uptight about it. You don't need to adapt yourself, and you can expect others to adapt to you.
Okay, we have a question from Nicole. So most of what we discussed applied to transformational leader and not to a transactional. Is it right? I didn't use the term transactional and transformational, but it's correct. When I said one of the most effective leadership style, I was thinking about transformational leadership as it's when we talk about motivating, not to reward, but more to our way of speaking, when we care about others. So when we have individual consideration, when we push our team to think outside of the box, and when we play, when we are the role model for our team, that is linked to transformational leadership style. Whereas transactional, sorry, would be more a transaction between you and your employee, where you give them something, they give you something. It's more linked to monetary or giving bonuses for a good performance. So when we talk about soft skills, they are quite linked to being transformational leader, where the goal of you as a leader is to transform your team member and to develop and empower team members. So I would say yes. What we mostly discuss is about transformational leadership, even though I didn't use that term. But thank you for your question, Nicole. I hope I answer it. Question from Anna. What are your visions for the future of hospitality, and how will you adapt your leadership style to suit these visions? So I think this one is more for our panelists. So as I'm more in the academic side, so you are the industry expert, if I can say that. Elena, what would be your point of view about that question? What are your vision for future of hospitality, and how will you adapt your leadership style?
I think the pandemic has brought a lot of changes to not only to the hospitality industry, but also to every kind of industry. So I would say, and I'm a big fan of transformation, so I would say that my vision for the hospitality industry, it's maybe to use the augmented reality and the automation in order to actually perform better, also in terms of the team of employees in the hospitality industry, but also to offer a better hospitality experience to the people, to the guests. But definitely, I think that you know, bringing the change and adapting to the whole planet's transformation is highly important, and can only lead to a good result, in my opinion.
Ashret, thank you, Elena. Ashret, you want to?
I think this question seems like an interview question from an employer. So one of the biggest visions that I have is to bring work-life balance in the industry. When I become a leader, I think about this always. The first thing that I will ensure is that there's work-life balance across, first from my team and hopefully from the organization as well, because a lot of things are normalized in the hospitality industry, which it shouldn't. Like, for example, you work long hours and then it's normalized. Maybe not every day, but it happens a lot. So I think this is something that I would really like to change as a future leader.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm quite conscious of the time, and I know our audience might need to leave. So I'm taking one more question before closing the session. So how can a manager improve soft skills when he or she is already on the job? That is a good question, and I will tell you what I'm telling to my students. It's all about self-awareness. You always find time to reflect about yourself and to just be conscious of your strengths and weaknesses. It's not only linked to our soft skills, but it's linked to our any personality trait or any behavior or skills we want to develop or we want to adapt. So being self-aware of how we act, how we behave, it doesn't need to be to take 1 year off or 1 week off just to improve our soft skills. It's on a daily basis. You might have reflect that you need or you miss coaching skills. Let's take this example in order to empower your team. So well, you might either do a quick search on internet in order to know what is coaching skills, how to improve it, and then you practice. You might practice with one of your employees that you feel comfortable with, and you try. You might fail, but you will try again and again and again, and then it will become an habit, and you will become better, and you improve your soft skills. Same for active listening. You might have not so good in active listening. That I would suggest maybe try with your mother or try with your brother or someone you don't really like to have on the phone, and you just really try techniques of active listener. So it's a way I would recommend to develop your soft skills. You don't need to be on outside of the job in order to improve, because it's easier to be, in fact, in a job. So that was the question. Just one remark from Paul. So I need to. Okay. So thank you. He mentioned that it was very enjoyable session. Oh, he left. Oh, that I need to mention. So interesting. He left Les Roches in 91. He has used daily all my skill learned in Montana. So Paul agreed with many of the things said, but I have found one important thing to deploy. When appropriate is humor. I found in a difficult situation that making light on the same situation or even making a joke about it can often work, yeah, or not. So he mentioned the use of humor. This is something we didn't talk. So humor is something quite sensitive. You might think that you have you're making good joke. Good joke. It's when I'm laughing because I know students know my joke and sometimes not so good. And there is differences in terms of culture how you will use humor. But I really appreciate your comment, Paul. It's true that humor is something quite important in any workplace. So thank you for the comment. So okay, let's wrap up. So as it's already past 3 here in Switzerland, so I just want to thank you, both of you, Elena and Ashrit, for your wonderful and passion you're putting in the answer and showing us what is leadership, what is soft skills, and what is hospitality business. And also want to thank our same passionate audience and for your wonderful question, and also for listening to us and watching us. If you have any question about the graduate programs, you can find the email address here on the slides on the screen. And also feel free to visit Les Roches website or to write to that email. So enjoy the rest of your day or of your night, depending where you are in the world. And I hope to see you maybe soon or to meet you again in one of our webinars or in real life. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.